Good afternoon. First and foremost, I really want to thank everyone for making the time to come out today. My name is Krish Omer-Vignaraja. I'm the President and CEO of Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service. We are the nation's largest faith-based nonprofit dedicated exclusively to serving refugees and immigrant communities. And we're based right here in Baltimore, so welcome to our headquarters. Because of the importance of this moment for the world and because of the importance for the DMV region, it's really important to realize that this will actually be one of the 3 largest resettlement locations in the country. And so I want to spend a few minutes sharing an update on what we know, as well as explaining what this means for Baltimore, for Maryland, and for the region. I'll also want to answer the question that so many have asked us, which is, how can they help? So like all of you, we have been devastated to watch the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. We've all seen the images now seared into our collective consciousness. Families clamoring for safety outside of the airport in Kabul, people clinging to C-17 military cargo planes, babies being passed over the wall to American soldiers. It is nothing short of heartbreaking, but it is understandable if you think about the imminent danger that these families face with the rise and return of the Taliban. That is because tens of thousands of these Afghans served faithfully alongside US military and government as translators, drivers, engineers, embassy clerks, and other vital support staff. Because they had our backs, they now have a target on theirs. The Taliban has made it clear in word and deed that there is no safety, no future for those who dared support the American mission. We made a sacred oath to keep them safe in return for their sacrifice. Hundreds of these allies have already been killed, and with no US presence to protect them, we fear that that number will only soar in the weeks and months to come. In addition to the allies who risked everything to protect us, there are so many others who face the same prospect of Taliban retribution. There are countless women's rights activists, journalists, academics, NGO workers, and other civil society leaders whose lives are in jeopardy as a result of their embrace of American ideals. They too must be protected. We are grateful the Biden administration has dramatically ramped up the effort to evacuate those in danger from Afghanistan. In the past 24 hours, the US has relocated an additional 19,000 people for a total of 82,000 men, women, and children moved to safety. And that is no small feat. It already ranks as one of the largest evacuation missions in American history. Indeed, it is a testament to what we can achieve with the full might of the US military working hand in glove with dedicated career diplomats. As an organization that led calls for an evacuation starting in April, we feel that this operation could have been started much sooner and in a more orderly fashion. Back in early June, I wrote in the Washington Post that protecting our allies needed to be a top and immediate priority. As I wrote then and continue to believe now, the United States will be remembered for the last things we do as we leave Afghanistan. We have the opportunity to bookend our nation's longest war with the world's boldest humanitarian evacuation in modern history. As the clock on withdrawal winds down, the stakes could not be clearer. Our Afghan allies' lives, as well as our nation's legacy, are on the line. Candidly, we have grave concerns about whether the US government will ultimately get everyone out of harm's way before President Biden's August 31st deadline. But we do know that thousands of Afghan families are going to arrive in the US. They already have. As we know, in many cases, just like my family did 40 years ago, they'll be arriving with really nothing but the clothes on their backs. And when they do, we'll be right here to welcome them, because that's what we do. Since 1939, Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service has supported more than 500,000 immigrants and refugees as they rebuild their lives in America. Since 2009, we have also welcomed nearly 10,000 Afghan allies and their families through the special immigrant visa process. In fact, Maryland alone has welcomed more than 4,000 Afghan allies and their family. We don't know yet exactly how many Afghan refugees will ultimately resettle here in the coming days and weeks, but we do know that Baltimore needs an infusion of new residents and workers as our population continues to decline and jobs go unfilled. So I'd like to tell you what that looks like in practice in terms of that work of welcome. When refugee families arrive, we are there from the very beginning to greet them at the airport and take them to their new home. Our staff and volunteers prepare homes in advance with modest furniture, culturally familiar foods, clothes, and other basic necessities. Over the coming months, our case managers provide ongoing support to help refugee families navigate their new communities. We provide cultural orientation, enroll adults in English classes and children in public schools. We help them access public benefits like health insurance and assist them in finding a job. Our work does not stop after that initial sprint to self-sufficiency. We subscribe to what we call the long welcome, the idea that we can build friendships and support networks that strengthen communities for years to come. These refugees may arrive as strangers, but time and time again, they become our extended family, and we too benefit from having them as our newest neighbors. This is an incredibly resilient, hardworking group. They go on to become teachers and doctors, electricians and engineers. They invent and open businesses. They revitalize our communities, enrich our culture, and they become the tapestry of our nation. And the overwhelming majority of Americans agree. And that's not just evidence in public polling. We see it firsthand in the tremendous outpouring of support that we've received in just the last week. Tens of thousands of people have gone to our website and signed up to be volunteers. In just the DMV area alone, 10,000 people have reached out offering to help. That's not even including the incredible donors who have provided basic necessities and financial contributions. We've even received offers of free housing to help these families start on a firm footing. It is nothing short of inspiring to see the generosity and compassion of this country and our state on full display. I firmly believe Americans are eager to welcome and embrace Afghan allies and refugees as they start over from scratch here. We want Baltimoreans and people across the country to know that they too can be a part of this historic effort. This will be an all-hands-on-deck effort that many of us have never witnessed in our lifetime. We need you now. We're going to need employers who are open to hiring refugees so they can take the first steps to self-sufficiency. We'll need volunteers to help with apartment setups to make sure that refugees have a suitable home. We'll need folks to serve as English tutors so families can navigate a new life in a new language. We'll need people to drive families to doctor's visits, to cultural orientation and other appointments. And we'll need advocates to urge our elected officials to do everything in our power to give these allies and refugees the hero's welcome that they deserve. And we'll need donors to support this once-in-a-lifetime mission. That's why today we're launching our donation drive that will be so critical. We need to make sure that families receive a warm welcome and firm fitting, and the kindness of the community is critical to that. We encourage everyone to chip in what they can. Our staff and volunteers will be right here at our headquarters accepting donations from 11 to 2 p.m. every weekday until September 3rd. I have no doubt in my mind that despite any challenges, we can rise to the occasion. Our dedicated staff, in partnership with community support, stand ready to welcome our Afghan brothers and sisters. Because that is who we are as a nation and a people. We welcome refugees not because they are Americans, but because we are Americans. So thank you, and I'd like to open up the floor to any questions. Yes, please.
Can you speak to how many Afghan refugees or evacuees have been resettled here in Baltimore so far?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have, and I know Tim, my press secretary, is here. Yeah, so I'll break it down kind of by fiscal year. So since the last fiscal year, this was in FY 2020, we had 9,439 Afghans in total. But in terms of for the last fiscal year, so the fiscal year that we're currently in, which is FY 2021, 4,500 have been accepted across the country, and 180 have come here to the U.S. And thus far, since this evacuation, we've had 5 families and about 30 people, 29 people to be exact. Other questions?
What are some of the most critical items you all are looking for during this donation drive? If somebody can bring 3 things, what are the top few things you all are looking for?
Yeah. So obviously, these people are coming with next to nothing. The food donations are going to be particularly critical. We're also looking specifically at halal meals. We're also looking for the hygiene kits, as well as diapers. Some of you have turned on the TV and you've seen children being cradled, toddlers being evacuated. There is going to be a critical need for those children in terms of when they arrive.
Can you talk a little bit about the housing situation? I imagine it might be tricky as more evacuees come here to find a more permanent location for them. Are there any other efforts underway to find temporary places or?
Yeah. So affordable housing is the biggest challenge that we will face. Americans know what that shortage is looking like in terms of high buying prices, difficulties renting. And so you can only imagine what these Afghan families with no nest egg are facing. So what's been incredible has been the outpouring of people who have been willing to say, I have a vacant apartment that can be used. I have a couple bedrooms in my house if a family or a couple wants to enter. We've also been looking at partnerships, including one with Airbnb that's begun in the Northern Virginia area, but we're hoping to expand that to really a national effort.
And you said the DMV in Baltimore specifically going to be a major hub for where these refugees are going. Why this area? Why is this area a great place to help resettle them?
Yeah. So, candidly, the strengths of our nation are reflected as a microcosm in terms of the DC metro area. Here in Maryland, right, fastest growing per capita growth of any state in the country. And so that, perfect timing for that, always. So if it's helpful, I can start from the beginning. So the DC metro area is going to be critical because of the assets that we offer, the cultural vibrancy, the economic opportunity, but also the fact that historically this has been a magnet for Afghan families. And so we try to prioritize if there is a family tie or a geographical preference. Understandably, these families want to connect into a community that exists already. And so the historical footprint of having a lot of Afghan families resettle in Maryland, Virginia, and DC means that it will continue to be a magnet for the new arrivals.
Very briefly, I wanted to clarify, did you mean that Baltimore is going to be one of the 3 biggest resettlement places in the country, or the DMV?
The DMV more broadly, so Maryland, Virginia, and DC. But we certainly hope that Baltimore will have an increased footprint in terms of where Afghans choose to resettle. Other questions?
Is there another way for folks to get their donations here if they can't come in person? Is there a way that they can donate remotely, I guess? Or are you all also looking for monetary donations?
So we're really looking for both financial and in-kind contributions. So for those who want to go to the website at www.lirs.org, they'll find a way to donate that way. Gift cards to stores where these families can go in and purchase personal products. Grocery store gift cards are very valuable and in great need right now as well. We're also looking into whether we should launch remote locations throughout Maryland, so more to come on that.
Can you talk a little bit about how an evacuee, how they end up where they do in the country? I mean, why the DMV area? How does that journey work?
Yeah. So it is actually a pretty complex algorithm that takes into account a number of things, whether the family has a tie to a specific state or city, whether they have a preference as a result of knowing that there is a large Afghan community in that area. But we want to make sure that we set up the families as well as the community for success. So we look at whether there's affordable housing in the region, whether there's employers who have actively said we want to support and employ these families. So there's a number of considerations that kind of determine where they will ultimately go for their final destination.